So this evening, this meeting is being called and hosted by the Paihia Waterfront Development Steering Group, and you can see on the screen there the representatives of different community groups that make up the steering committee. And all of these people have been involved or have been invited to be involved. Some of them have come, some of them have fallen off, but everybody is kept up to date with the minutes and each of the meetings. Just going to have a look now at what the steering group has been trying to achieve. What's our kaupapa been over the last few months? So there's 3 points. We wanted to agree and find out a process by which the public could have input into the design. And it's been very important from the get-go that we get as much public input and as we possibly could into what's wanted on the waterfront. We also wanted to consult with the community as to whether they were supportive of fundraising some additional funds to complete the work outside the reclamation outside the maritime building. So we wanted to gauge the public opinion and see whether there was an interest in completing that work. And the benefits of that is that by completing that work through public funds, we would be able to set aside that space for public space for the future, and so that it couldn't be built on in the future. The third point, part of our kaupapa, is to act as a conduit between whānau holdings, who are the ones that are carrying out this project and delivering this project, and the community. So we want to have information flowing both ways, from whānau holdings through the steering group to the community, but also taking the community's concerns, feeding them back to whānau holdings. So those are our objectives. Looking ahead at what we want to achieve tonight, we want to provide an update on the progress that's been made so far on the project. Chris is going to talk to us shortly about that. We also want to outline the process that the steering group has chosen to get that community input into the design of the waterfront. We're also going to complete a bit of a needs-based exercise, which I'll explain a little bit more later. And we'd like to take a ballot or a show of hands to gauge public interest in the reclamation outside the maritime building.
So that's the scheme plan as it stands at the moment, and that's the work we've been on at the moment. The work that we've been on at the moment is to validate that design, and we've spent the last sort of 4 or 5 months. So that was what was originally consented, with some amendments. Parts of this development that were consented were other elements around the reclamation that will be talked about later in the evening, the eastern attenuator. What's shown is actually what this project is about and what's going to be delivered. So northern, western breakwaters and the 2 groins, the promenade area and the beach. So that's the body of work that we've been working on, and the work we've been doing to date has been encapsulated in this document here, which is the technical review of that scheme plan that was consented back in 2011. So we've spent the last 5 months validating that work, and that's the information here. There's a lot of material in here that will be made available to you to have a look at. So that's where we're at on that front. If I can just move to some of that work. Wave modelling has been a major component of the project, looking at how waves enter the bay, into those beach areas, both T Beach and out the front of Motomori and through Taylor's and right across that waterfront. Hydrodynamic and shoreline evolution models that are used to establish how waves move in and how the structures relate to those, and also sediment transportation, etc. So there's a whole lot of detailed information in that are used. Dredging design, we had 3 options for dredging. We've chosen a particular design that has been supported by the commercial boat operators. It's more of a, I'll show you a picture about that as well. And we'll get into a little bit of information about the two groins that are most tangible to you and I. Also got into some of the detail around the actual rock sizings of the breakwaters and the groins. So again, just gives you some detail around those elements, those structural elements. We've done work on, this is a bathymetric representation, so this is the depth of the water around the basin there. The greens and the blues are the deeper areas, and the yellows and the lighter colours are shallower areas. So this is what we started with, and this is what's been modernised to actually provide us an improved channel into the wharf area. Some of you remember the three different types of access that we had into that area. One was a loopy, curvy sort of channel. There was these two straight line ones, one that went in this direction and one went to the other side of a small shoal at the very right hand edge there. So this is actually the dredge area that's going to be used for the new channel. Sand. I'm not sure if we've brought our samples of sand. We have. So we've done quite a lot of work on the sand that's required to build the beach. Starting very simplistic terms, we've looked at grain size. Grain size is really important to prove the beach sustainability in one place. The larger grain size, the less that sand will move around. Obviously silt moves around a lot with water. Grain size, the bigger the grain size, the more stable it is. This is Curry Marama in Mission Bay. So we've looked at sand options up and down the country. The best source remains dredge sand from off the Paihia coastline. And the type of sand we're talking about is in the back, so at the end of the meeting, perhaps you can go down and have a look at the grain size and what it looks like. But that's the sand that's used here and other beaches like Torpedo Bay, etc. in Devonport. Just a little bit more about the sand. Obviously, when we looked at the dredging, we looked at using a lot of that dredge material to build the base of the beach. We've established that, having done quite a lot of work on what that material is, that it's not really suitable for rebuilding the base of the beach. So we've ended up in a situation where the dredgings will go to disposal, to land-based disposal, and that the beach will be built entirely of sand. So we'll be bringing in a full contingent, if you like, a full component of sand to build that beach. So whereas previously we were going to use half of that dredge material to build up the base of the beach and then put the sand on top. Now we're going to be doing it all as sand.
Locally, we know where, is the sand coming from Pātiki, did you say?
Paihia?
Okay.
Sorry.
What's the local area over there?
I'm not sure actually. Sorry.
What was the question about?
Who were the related?
They know you're taking sand from their backyard. About the sand.
There's a consent for the take, which is off the coast, so that consent would have been granted with iwi input.
So while you've got that up, mean high water springs is presently high water springs. That's not allowed for rising sea level, I presume. What is the height between that mean high water springs and the rock wall? What's the difference in height?
Yeah, it probably is. I might get Jennifer a Ropta, but I mean, we've in the whole design, we've allowed for sea level rise. So we've included 0.5 metre, I believe, across all the marine structures, related structures. So as that relates to AHT, I'm not quite sure. I might get someone else to comment on that if there is a comment.
Okay, well, I'd like
to come back to
hold any more questions till the end of the presentation, but thank you. So I'm just going to recap on the opportunity that exists for us here as a community, and just confirm the space that we're talking about. So Chris has just shown you the slides here. So we've got the waterfront effectively from the left-hand side of the wharf through to Nihanui Bluff. And it's especially that area in white that we're looking at. We also have, there is the additional area of the potential reclamation outside the maritime building. I've got an example, a drawing of that coming up shortly. Just the budget, so just confirming that the Provincial Growth Fund announced approximately $8 million for this project, and the Far North District Council has announced, I think it was $4.9 million for the project. 5 million? 5.3? Okay, sorry.
How's it looking?
No. But by my maths, that must be 13.3 million. So yeah, the proposed budget for the part that the public have an input into, and what we're looking at designing, starting the process of designing today, is approximately 1.7 million for the beautification and the design of the promenade area. As with any project, there are a few non-negotiables, so we just want to mention those. These are things that without which we can't undertake this project. So it is important that we have the groins, so the east and west groin, to hold the sand on the beach. It's also important that if we're going to go to this investment, we protect the investment, and we need to have the breakwaters. So those are non-negotiable. And the third part of the non-negotiable is the dredging that's required inside to ensure the navigability of the area. So those things will definitely go ahead. The fourth point there I've made, and this is, I think, a very exciting component, and it's come to us recently through the steering group, and that is that Waka Kotahi, previously known as Transit New Zealand, I believe, NZTA, yeah. They have a plan to create a shared cycle and walking trail between the roundabout at Waitangi and just north of Nihanui Bluff. So coming around past the playground and up to about where the handrail starts. So they have a plan to do that work in the next, I believe, 12 to 18 months. So they have come to us and said, look, we understand that you're working on this piece here, and the new waterfront. It makes sense for us to look at extending our brief and coming around the bluff. So we could potentially bring a shared walking and cycle trail right around the bluff, and then we can take that through the esplanade area, or the promenade area. So when you're thinking about your designs, Waka Kotahi have asked that you consider whether you would like that pathway to come around the bluff at a lower level, around more at beach level, or whether you'd like to see something potentially cantilevered out around at road level. So I think it's important that you factor that into the designs that you come up with over the next few weeks. Okay. So, but I think it's a really exciting addition to the project, and it will link it. So basically, you'll be able to go from town right through to Waitangi, well, not quite to Waitangi, but through the state highway area on the cycle trail. So what the steering group have been working on is a process by which we can encourage as many people in our community to get involved in the design process as possible. And so I'm just going to run through now our plan to get everybody involved in working together to come up with ideas. We are going to, later on this evening, as I discussed earlier, we're going to work on a needs-based exercise, and I look forward to working on that with you later on. We've got a public meeting tonight where we're calling to mobilise your design talent, your community design talent, and we're going to give you templates. Anybody wants to take away templates tonight on which you can do those designs, and we're asking you to submit those before the 15th of April. So those, we have three A3 pages which give you blank canvases on which to share your design, both visually, and then you're also welcome to do it in writing as well. You can be as creative as you like. These designs will then be displayed in a public space, most likely at the Maritime Building, and they'll be displayed for a 2 to 3 week period early in May. At this stage, we're looking from about the 6th of May through to the 23rd of May. All of these displays or designs will be available for you to make comment on. You'll be asked to make comment on a piece of paper. There'll be an option to number the design that you're commenting on and to give your pros and cons, the things that you like and the things that you don't like about each design. And then you'll be asked to pop those in a box, and that will be part of the process. At the end of that period, so we're talking about late May, all of those designs and all of the feedback on those designs will be collated into a design brief, and it will be handed to more than likely a gentleman in the back of the room by the name of Mike, who is going to read, interpret, and come up with a design, a formal design, which we will then bring back to the community and ask, how close is this to what you're wanting? And we'll be seeking your feedback at a second public meeting. So we're talking now probably sometime in maybe late June, July. So there'll be a midwinter public meeting where you'll get to have a look at that design and decide whether he's got it right or whether he needs to go back and do more work. So that's the steps in the process. This is basically the drawing that Chris used as well. So this is one of the templates that we're handing out tonight. So there's three A3s. This is the first one. This is the second one. So it shows the area reclaimed outside the Maritime Building. So that is, of course, dependent on everybody, not everybody, a majority agreeing that this is a project that we want to undertake. And then the third A3 is that cross-section diagram that we talked about before. So giving you the opportunity to draw a cross-section. So those three drawings are available on the table up front here. They are also available on the website, and there will be copies of those templates available at Saltair in town, the Saltair offices. So I know that there's a fairly limited turnout here tonight, reasonably good numbers, but I'm sure there's a lot more people that want to have input into this project. So I encourage you to get out there in the community and make it known, let people know where they can get these templates, and encourage them to put in their design ideas and be a part of this process. So again, they're online, available online, they're available at the Saltair offices, and they're available here tonight. Okay. So just having a look at code. So there we go, we've got the information again. And then of course how to submit a design. So there's several options there. You can send it to PO Box 7 in Opua. You can address it to the Paihia Waterfront Committee at gmail.com, or you can drop it off at the Saltair offices. And we've set that deadline for the 15th of April. It's just before the school holidays. We figured it best to get it out of the way before businesses get a little bit busier and children come home from school and require extra attention. So yeah, it's the 15th of April. So we're now going to move into the needs exercise that I've spoken about a couple of times. When we're going through this design process, we're all going to be thinking about what we want, what we like, and what we want. And one of our steering group members has brought it to our attention that one of the things that's often forgotten in these processes is what is needed. And so we felt that people are going to run ahead with their designs and it's going to be all about what they want, what they like. So we thought we would use this group here tonight and encourage you to spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just working out the needs that our community have, that you may have as an individual, that a group that you represent may have, that we should be incorporating into the design of this project. So what's going to happen is we're going to hand out some sticky notes and a pen. I encourage you to work in a group of 2s and 3s and 4s. We're going to have about 5 to 7 minutes just for you to work together, put your each idea on a separate sticky note, and then we'll bring them up here and put them on the board. Reclamation, and we're going to invite Grant Harnish to come in and talk about this point.
Thanks, Charles. Do I need to do this?
Yes.
Right, good evening everyone. Grant Harnish is my name, and it's been a real pleasure to be involved with Charles and working with the community steering group for this project. It is super exciting. I've been here almost 30 years. And for the last almost 20 years we've been talking about it, and I've got to say it's pretty neat to actually be doing it. We have the opportunity, so we have to ignore this part of it. This is not actually in the funding. So we have had several discussions already. We had a discussion at the Focus Paihia AGM last year, of which probably we had 95% support to go ahead and raise the funds to do that project. And as a steering committee, we had a majority support to go ahead and do it as well. So we're here tonight to ask your opinion and to get some feedback from you as well. I guess we're going to do it by a show of hands. If it's close, we're going to ask to do a ballot as well. So we'll ask you to write down what you think. So this project is consented as well, just to be clear. Within that consent, Farnell Holdings has the ability to put buildings on here. I've been involved with Focus Paihia for the best part of 11 or 12 years now, and ever since I have been involved with that and spoken at many public meetings, the overwhelming desire of this community is to have no more commercial development on the waterfront, to have a clean green space and maintain some form of view of the waterfront.
Yes.
So, if we want to achieve that, so don't forget, this can get built anyway. We're not asking if we can build it. What we're asking is, should we do this as a community? And if we do, Farnell Holdings has generously agreed to pass over building any buildings on that and ensure this space becomes for the community green space in perpetuity. The very best idea for doing this is we get a green space as a community. We get an amazing waterfront, and Farnell Holdings has agreed to allow that to happen. And I think it's hugely generous of them. Charles and I spoke with them about the middle of last year when this was first mooted, that the money could be available, and they instantly said they would be happy to look into that. And then since then the board has met and they've agreed to it. And we have a letter for those who would like to come and see it with what they've agreed to do. But essentially it will become public space, no buildings. There is the ability for the restaurant here to have 5 metres out this side and about 15 metres out this side of our fresco dining. And Farnell Holdings do maintain access to build the eastern attenuator if they so wish to in the future. Which is all stuff that's all in the resource consent that they can do anyway. But we're happy to go through and show people what those are. So I guess what we're here tonight to say is, as a community, would you like a group of people to get together and actually do some fundraising. So Focus Paihia raised $2.3 million to build a mountain bike park. So it's not impossible to do. It does sound like a big number, but it's not impossible. We can go ahead and raise that money and build this as part of that development. So rather than stopping short, we actually carry on and complete the idea and the concept. So, I guess, let's just maybe, has anyone got any questions about what I've said? Sir?
Yeah, like, no way in hell that I think that you guys should have anything to do or anything else put in what's already there.
As part of holding charging for the lease of those buildings on the reclamation,
There is no building, sir. That's the idea. If we do this, there are no buildings.
what's that restaurant?
This one here is already here, sir.
Oh, yeah.
That's already sitting there. It's been there a long time.
And the other comment I'd like to just make is that building the reclamation is the taking of more foreshore and seabed. The foreshore and seabed is under Waitangi claims, under the NAC claims, and by doing the reclamation, you are stealing that foreshore and seabed.
Okay. There is a consent for it. This can happen. We're not actually saying if it's a good idea or not because the consent is issued, but I take your point. Yeah.
What sort of money roughly are you thinking that would?
Okay, so it's been, Rob's done a very high level look at costings, Gary, and it's about $3 million, $3.1 million to do it.
I would have thought that the biggest beneficiaries, if you go ahead and do that, are going to be the owners of the maritime building. And have you had discussions with them along the lines that they would be at the forefront of contributing? Because it's going to, I would have thought it's going to massively increase the value of their property.
Quite how that's going to happen is we're going to have to go and raise the money somehow.
I know,
And that would be one of the comments.
I am assuming if you go to a commercial property agent, he will tell you that if you do that development work,
Yes, it would.
there will be an increase in value of this property of X. Shouldn't the owners of those properties be asked to?
And that would be a great discussion to have. So that would be a great discussion to have if we decide to go ahead and raise the money. And I think it's a valid point. Roger.
Can you put that picture back up, sir? I can't, whilst I support the idea of having open space, I can't see who's going to benefit from that open space because we've got all the new beach with open space. That area there is really of benefit for the people who are sitting in that building in restaurant. There's no, apart from the village green, which I presume is sacrosanct, you don't get a view out there. No one gets it. They can walk up the top of Flagstaff Hill and get the view, and they can sit in the restaurant and get the view. I'm not quite sure who's going to benefit from the open space, as you're calling it, to do all that.
Hear what you're saying, Roger. One of the ideas which came up from one of the steering group members, Gary sitting over here, was that potentially the reclamation, rather than extending out to that extent that it is permitted, is that it be shortened a little bit and the extra money used to take the path around this bluff and then join up with the path along the beach and then with a shared walking and cycling path, giving you access from one end of town right through to the other.
Well, I think that if it was access, then I say yes, it's good. But to have all that, I'm not quite sure who's benefiting from all that because what's going to happen there?
You mentioned about the restaurant being extended 15 metres toward.
No, I'm sorry, the restaurant's not been extended. It's for al fresco dining.
Okay, which would
Yes.
not have public access, then it would be under the restaurant's lease. So you would then have to go around, because 15 metres is quite a long way extended toward the.
Sure. So this side 15 metres to the southeast,
Toward
to the northeast.
helicopter. So
Yes, correct. To the northeast 5.
To the water,
Correct.
but 15 metres toward the lookout.
That there could be al fresco. It's going to go out that way about 40 or 50.
And then so that area would not have been public access then as such.
Well, I think everybody's going to be able to walk through it. They can put restaurants and tables out there.
It's awkward when you walk through that land. They'll, you know, it's always awkward, like where they took the land on the waterfront, where they boxed it in.
Yeah.
You know, that's public land. You walk through there.
15 metres is quite.
That's the deed. CK, okay, yeah.
Front there's public land. You walk
Yes, it
through
is.
there, you'll love it.
Sure. Yeah, fair enough.
15 metres just seems like a lot to me,
Yeah.
for them to just take, are they gonna pay
And
fair
5
enough
metres
money for
the
that
front,
15
you know,
metres?
when you
Yeah.
step it out.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just worried that the discussion is, if we don't raise the money, Far North Holdings will go ahead against community wishes and develop this thing. It sort of feels like a threat, like with the community against Far North Holdings. It feels uncomfortable.
No, I'm sorry, that's not how it's meant to be. This is just a reality of what it could be and what we could do to ensure that we have this in perpetuity.
What's going to be at the front of the wall where you're proposing? Like, is it going to be a rock wall or is it going to be straight up?
So probably at this stage the discussion is a boardwalk will be cantilevered over a wall. So you'll actually just see a boardwalk and water. And you'll be walking on the boardwalk. Far North Holdings has agreed to maintain that boardwalk for 50 years.
I kind of agree with what's being said over here. Like, it feels almost like a bit of a trap, almost like, okay, public, you guys raise the money to do this, and Far North Holdings won't put any buildings on. But like what was being said, what happens if we don't manage to raise that money? Is Far North Holdings going to come in and be like, well, you guys didn't do it, so we're going to do it now, and we're going to put buildings on top because you didn't do it?
Well, no, they're not saying that at all, Melissa. They're not saying that that's in their intention now, but there is the option.
What about in the future? You're saying it is an
There
option.
is the option, absolutely it's an option. It's a consented project, okay, and the buildings are consented.
And like you're saying, you don't know the date of when, or the year of when that consent was approved, you know, much like the scientific research that was going on, you said, what, 10 years ago in that area, and now you've readdressed this project, and so you've carried out all this research again. That's fine, but what about the changes that happened in the community during that time, since that consent was approved? You know, the iwi might have changed how they feel about things, the public might have changed how they feel about things.
Sure.
I think that should come into it as well.
So, are you suggesting, Melissa, that we start from the very beginning again?
I guess that's a lot of work, but I'm just saying it's another thought.
Melissa, I've been here 30 years, we've been talking about it. You know, like at what point, at some point, we do have to actually take grasp of it, in my opinion, and move ahead with projects that have been consented.
Consent for this was approved in 2009, and it was under a contested process under the RMA with the NRC, Northern Regional Council, to occupy foreshore and seabed. It was contested, it was very controversial, it was approved in 2009. So, with some background history of it and knowing the issues, I assumed that it had lapsed in 2019. It was a 10-year life for the consent to be given effect. So the consent was renewed without public notification, right? It was renewed, so it still is a permitted consent. That's not the issue. One of the things that I then asked is, who will own this development? I've since been told that in fact the development wouldn't be owned by the council, it would be owned by the Crown, because it is occupation of foreshore and seabed. So I said at that point, well, if it's owned by the Crown, it will definitely come under a claim on the Waitangi Tribunal, because we've had permanent customary occupation by our local hapu iwi of this area, and they would rightfully be able to claim it. And so therefore, there's another dynamic about who's paying for it and what's the relationship to the land that's going to be created.
I think what we're after tonight is just a simple whether you're for or against us trying to fundraise to complete a reclamation outside the maritime building. The size and shape of which will be determined by the public designs that are put in and the process that follows from there. So,
but what if we're for leaving this, not for or against, but defer this discussion?
that's not one of the options that's being given tonight. You're for or against.
Can I ask questions? What's
what's the purpose of having a for or against when anybody is at liberty to go out and do community fundraising for anything they like? Why do you ask people for yes or no if you are able to and wanting to do it? Couldn't you just go ahead and do that? And won't you do that even if a lot of people say, no, we don't want to be involved with fundraising for this exercise?
No, look, I think there's lots of ways that Grant and I can spend our time, and a number of the people on the steering group can spend our time. We think that this is a worthwhile project, and hence that's why we're suggesting that we would put our time and energy into making it happen. If the community really doesn't want it, then we're not going to spend that time.
But you don't
So that's-
need the community's permission to do that, do you?
But we do want to go with the community, not to be going against the community. Yes, we're looking for a mandate.
So you do know, like I said, that I put my energies into fundraising for a different initiative, and it will be competing.
Both Charles and Grant are community members. They're not standing there as a company, they're standing there like you and me as a community member, trying to represent us and trying to get a group view. And I don't think it's fair that you should pick on them individually when they're trying to help the community.
So we've been here, and I do have a meka claim, as do a whole lot of other people from Ngāti Rahiri, Ngāti Kawa, and it is correct about the reclaiming of the foreshore seabed, and we're not alone. There are overlap or shared interests in the moana and the foreshore seabed, obviously. But I don't think that unless you are representing the iwi and hapu, that you can't make those comments about what the iwi and hapu are doing, because they're still in discussion, and they're open to discussion and developing and perhaps looking at making beautification, looking at commerce, but I think this is in its infancy, and it was to gauge, do we want to look at it? And the fire there said that she's lived here for a long time. I heard, if not correctly, that that is a good idea, but what is the benefit of the reclamation? And we've had lots and lots of discussion.
I can speak because over the weeks I have gone to every door of the iwi who live here locally. I've knocked on every door and I have asked them, have you been consulted? Has this come to you? They say no. And I says, and they said, you know, if you hadn't come around, I wouldn't have known about any of us. So I can speak.
Yeah, that's fine.
And so,
that's fine. I'm not
the
disputing
feedback
this.
that I'm getting
This
back.
is what happens. We have so many people, just like here, all with your opinions. You have your own te tiratanga, so do we. There's different groups. As it's been up there, Kawerua ki Waitangi, Hapu and Waikaimans. Ngāti Rahiri, Ngāti Kawa Ora Māpoi, ki Waitangi. Ngāti Kawa Taituha, the chairman of the marae, has given his apologies for tonight and asked me to take it back. I'm not arguing with my sister. She's done the right thing and whatever she wants to do. But this is just another voice towards deciding whether we're going to go for reclamation, are we going to the reclaiming of Horatutu Beach. And a lot of us have spent years, probably 40 years, in the Mecca claims, and I'm not going to dissent or whatever. She's done her work. I've seen her on the corner doing the work. So all I'm saying is we're here to talk about whether some of us want to go forward and do a reclamation.
So unless you have any more questions about the project, I will bring this meeting to a close. We will give everybody a piece of paper, I think it'll be another sticky note. We'll recirculate the pens. We'll get the waste paper basket from under the table there, and everybody will be welcome to place a vote in the waste paper basket on the way out, and we will count that and communicate How will we do that? On Facebook tomorrow?
But the question, Charles, will be...
The question is whether you support the fundraising for the reclamation. If you do support it, you're for. If you don't support it, you're against. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming this evening. I'll now hand over to Mary-Ann to close the meeting. Thank you, Mary-Ann.
What I'd like to say is, guide our thoughts, our words, and our deeds today, that we may know and do your will. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.